All right, so having laid the groundwork for this entire course and then spoken about the emotion of emotions, which is love, all the other ones are based upon, they're founded on that emotion. Now we're going to zoom out. We're going to talk about the two broader categories of the emotions, which are the concupiscible and the irascible passions. And I will refer the viewer, yourself, to the chart that I'm going to put in this course, which is really helpful for seeing visually where each of those two categories of the passions and where each of the emotions fits within those categories and how they relate to one another. We're going to speak to those categories here. So, why are there different categories of emotions? Well, we feel differently because of different kinds of objects. The thing that we are apprehending that is making us feel a certain way, along with ourselves. Remember, we said, show me what a man loves, I will show you what he is. So the perception of the thing, whether we take it to be a good or an evil, is dependent upon us as well. So to take an easy example, imagine you like peanut butter sandwiches and you're walking through the kitchen and on the table is a peanut butter sandwich. When you see it, the apprehension of it simply as a good, you will feel a kind of love or like, which then can become desire. Then if you take a bite out of the sandwich, can elicit joy. Someone else walking through the kitchen has a peanut butter allergy. They're looking at the same peanut butter sandwich. They're not going to see it as a good. They're going to perceive it as an evil simply. So they might feel hatred and then aversion. And then if they're forced to eat it or touch it and they break out in this allergy, they'll feel sorrow. This is one category of the passions called the concupiscible passions. They're elicited from an object we consider simply good or simply evil. There is an additional category of emotions that regard not the object just as simply good or evil, but it's a mixed object. It has aspects of it which are perceived as good. At the same time, it has aspects of it which are possible evils, which will make us feel like we ought to pursue those certain goods in the midst of obstacles, and we ought to flee from this potentially harmful thing. So looking very specifically just at that first group first, the concupiscible. So again, the concupiscible passions are elicited from an object we take to be simply good or simply evil. Concupiscible comes from the Latin word concupiscence, so it means desire, and it follows very straightforward. The second category, the irascible passions, is a little bit more difficult to understand. But if we're continuing that example of the peanut butter sandwich, so I said if someone takes peanut butter sandwiches to be good simply, they'll feel love, desire, joy. Perhaps if they take peanut butter sandwiches to be evil, they'll feel hatred, aversion, sorrow if they're forced to eat it. Now consider if we alter this scenario just a little bit. Imagine that's a golden, pure gold peanut butter sandwich trophy on the table, and it has been stolen by a robber, and that robber is standing between you and the sandwich. Now the scenario has changed greatly. Now it has arduous aspects to it. It has obstacles attendant upon it. In that scenario, if you just imagine those two different scenarios, so you looking at the peanut butter sandwich alone in your house, and then the stolen trophy from your family being guarded by a bandit who may harm you, if you just imagine those scenarios in your mind and really try and enter into those scenarios, you will notice that you will feel different passions. The entire set of passions which are elicited by this scenario, which is mixed, there's the evil, possible evil, which is the bandit, there's the possible good of attaining the trophy, those we call the irascible passions. So, in this scenario, if one contemplates the perceived evil, the possible evil, which is the bandit, as overcomable, that perception will elicit the emotion of daring. If as insurmountable, so not overcomable, this bandit, then one will feel fear. If one then in this scenario is apprehending the golden trophy, which is possible to be attained, if it's apprehended as possible to be attained, one will feel the emotion of hope. If it's impossible to be attained, one will feel the emotion of despair. And then looking back at daring, so if the bandit is apprehended as being able to overcome, if that then moves the appetite to actively go after, to attack, to struggle against this possible evil, then daring will be transformed into anger. And that's where the word irascible comes from. It comes from anger. one very important consideration when it comes to all of the passions, but especially when we talk about the irascible passions. Because of our disintegrated, disordered state here post-fall, we feel things before we voluntarily choose to feel things. Think about if you're driving through traffic, someone cuts you off in traffic, you may feel anger before you even notice you're feeling anything at all. These passions, they can come through voluntary deliberation and choice. We call the passions that come after the will, the voluntary use of the will, the consequent passions. But passions will also be elicited just by snapshot judgments. From a sense, we call the estimative sense. It's an estimation. It's kind of similar to instinct. So when the sheep apprehends the wolf, it just knows. There is this pre-programmed judgment that when it apprehends the color and the shape of the wolf, it knows harmful. And so it runs away. You will make a snapshot estimation based on your own thought, your own consideration of yourself, of the world. Beforehand, you will make a snapshot judgment estimation in these scenarios, like the burglar between you and the trophy. That will inform your passions. You will feel a certain way because you estimate at that moment something. You estimate the burglar as insurmountable. You're going to feel fear. You estimate the golden trophy as able to attain. You're going to feel hope. Now, once you feel once these estimations create immediate passions in you, you can then talk to yourself and you can begin to think differently, and then feel something differently because of what you've considered and thought and argued with yourself. But just realize that because you're feeling something, it's coming from these estimations, which in some ways have been formed before the scenario. They don't have a moral character until you voluntarily choose either to indulge them or to dispel them. So these are, roughly speaking, generally our two categories of emotions. There are the category of emotions that are elicited in us when the good or evil, according to our perception, is just simply perceived in that way. Here's the sandwich, I like it, I don't like it. The emotions which follow from it, those are the concupiscible. The irascible are, here's a mixed object that has arduousness attendant upon it, obstacles. It's kind of good in one sense, I could win the trophy. It's kind of bad in another sense, I'm going to have to overcome this burglar. That entire set of passions which are elicited by the mixed, arduous object are the irascible passions. And a lot of these pairs deserve their very own treatment, so we're going to give them that treatment moving forward and moving next into sorrow and anger.